Welcome to another episode of Axe of the Blood God, an independent RPG podcast. I'm your host, Kat Bailey. Joining me as always, my lovely co-host, Nadia Oxford.
Hello, Kat. I'm sorry Scotland was it tried to kill you, but I'm glad you're back with us.
I'm still alive. Gosh darn it. Still alive. Thank you. Also joining me is my equally lovely co-host, Eric Van Allen.
I still haven't been killed by the SGF illness. It has not taken me yet. Still to be determined if it will.
It wasn't SGF that got me. It was actually somebody showing up with symptoms at the wedding and then spreading it to everybody. Yay! So, alas.
Yay, that's the world we live in. It's great.
I know. What a world. What a world. And finally, our special guest, it's Mitchell Saltzman.
Hello. How's it going, everyone?
How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Mitchell is joining us this week because we are going to be talking about Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Yes, we are heading back. Is it called the Land of Shadow? The Shadowlands? Something like that.
It's the Realm of Shadow, not to be confused with the Shadow Realm, which is a Yu-Gi-Oh thing.
I was looking for Yugi's grandpa in there everywhere. Could not find him.
We're getting banished to the Shadow Realm in Elden Ring. Mitchell reviewed it for IGN. That's where I work. And we're going to be talking all about his impressions and some of our early impressions. I've been playing it. Don't know if Nadia and Eric, you've been playing it. But we have thoughts, and we're going to be talking about them here on the podcast. We'll also be recapping some of what we saw in the Nintendo Direct that happened earlier this week, plus all of the news, plus what we've been playing. Got a little SMT5 Vengeance conversation in here. We're going to be talking about Destiny 2, the final shape, apparently, and many other things. So please look forward to it. Before we get to that, though, if you enjoy the show, well, here's how you can support us. For just $1 at Patreon, at patreon.com/bloodgodpod, you'll get the show ad-free, and you get access to our Discord, where you can do things like talk about Nintendo Directs, get nerdy about SMT5 Vengeance, participate in our monthly game club where we're currently playing Wizardry, and many other exciting things as well. You get to vote in our monthly Pantheon poll, which is coming up this week. And this week's topic is, it's the cat month. Cats picks. So we've done a Nadia Pantheon. We've done a Nadia Pantheon. Eric has done one, I think. Eric, what was that noise?
I thought it was a month for like games about cats. And,
that's what I thought too.
Yeah. That was really exciting I'm excited in a different way now, but like, you know.
That's gonna kill us all.
Which RPGs prominently feature cats?
I should know the answer to this.
Persona 5, obviously, but we've already done that one. Send in your thoughts on RPGs that prominently feature cats. Maybe they'll fit into the Pantheon poll. But yeah, we come over to the Discord. We're all having an amazing time over there. Go buy some Axe the Blood God merch at shop.bloodgodpod.com and subscribe to us on Twitch at twitch.tv/bloodgodpod, where Eric is currently in the midst of his run through Final Fantasy VI Esper Quest. How you doing there, Eric?
We'll talk about it in the tavern. That's my tavern for this week.
Oh, yeah.
Stay tuned for that.
I watched some of your video and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. And of course, Dawn Trail's coming up. So if you want lots of Final Fantasy XIV conversation, go check out Charlie and Dropouts. Whew, so much content out there. You'll be able to just go and listen to Axe of the Blood God forever and ever. Amen. But speaking of forever and ever, amen. Shadow of the Erdtree, the latest expansion from Elden Ring. Miyazaki said that it was going to be like 20 hours. It felt a little bit like trolling. This is a very dense expansion. Mitchell reviewed it for IGN. Somehow, I don't know how he does it. He's superhuman. He gave it a perfect 10. Mitchell, Erdtree, thoughts?
Oh man, so many. I feel like all I've been doing this week has been going on podcasts and other kind of appearances and just talking about Shadow of the Erdtree. So forgive me if anyone.
Yeah.
So forgive me if someone has watched all those things and notices that I'm just repeating myself. But you know, I think this is an expansion that kind of, it's kind of a guiding light for future online or future single player expansions of big RPGs and big AAA titles. It's incredibly dense. There's so many opportunities for discovery, and the challenges that you face are, Elden Ring's a hard game, but impossibly, Shadow of the Erdtree is even harder. And I think for people who are at that end level and they're looking for new challenges, they're looking for reasons to keep playing Elden Ring. This is absolutely that and more. And I just think the world design of the Realm of Shadow is just so incredibly well designed. Like, just the way that you happen upon, you're looking at your map and you're like, how do I get to this whole side of the continent? And then you just randomly find like a ladder that takes you down into this area. You're like, oh, actually, I've never been here before. You go down into like a cave. That cave spills out into a path, and that path opens up the entire like eastern part of the map. And just like that feeling of discovering that on your own is just so incredible. I wish I could bottle up and have everyone experience it.
Yeah, that's the thing that's going to get me about the DLC. It's like I think I burned myself out a bit on how hard things got with like Milena and all that, but I love exploring the world of Elden Ring so much that I'm probably just going to let myself die and suffer, but enjoy it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this game really seems like it's geared toward the one percenters in Elden Ring. One of the things that really stands out to me is they basically said, okay. In Elden Ring, yeah, congratulations, you got to like level 200 or something and just one-shotted everything. Great. Well, now the difficulty is going to scale in this one, and you're just going to have to suck it up and beat these bosses. So have fun.
It's funny because I think people were I say at the top of my review that it didn't take long for the Realm of Shadow to humble me. I think a lot of people are coming into this, with they can one-shot pretty much everything in the main game. They can take out all the main bosses like very, very easily. I think they're expecting to come into this with the same kind of like just steamroll philosophy of I'm just gonna, plow through this because my build is so pristine and perfect. And they're in for a rude awakening. Mm-hmm. Not even that far into the DLC.
I think it's important that we lay out that like there's a different power scaling in Erdtree than in the base game, and I think that's kind of where a lot of the frustration is coming from. Because I'll say that like I was playing early, I was out at SGF, so I didn't get home to my copy quite as fast. But I hopped in after I got back, and immediately the thing I found was that, my build worked great when I was clearing out even like Millennia and all that. But the second I started playing this game and the first guy shows up on that arc and he has like the blade dancing stuff and he's like flicking stuff at you. He kicked my ass multiple times. And, the Black Jail Knight, the Dancing Lion, and some of the other like early bosses are getting like a lot of shout outs on social media right now for how much they are like gatekeeping people from getting through this game. It's because like there are these things, Scadutree fragments and revered spirit ashes blessings, whatever. They all build up your like shadow blessing. There's a lot of like proper nouns and jargon in this DLC. They build up these like separate meters that I would be very curious to see the scaling for, because it feels like it's just a percentage-based bump on your stats overall to get you to the point to where you can fight some of these bosses and their stat bricks. And I think that's some of the frustration. Why I'm a little bit more cool on the DLC is because there's something about like the original Elden Ring. You could kind of go find power wherever you wanted to find power. You could take out a catacomb. You could fight random bosses and Everjails. You could follow the critical path. You could stab a dragon and Caelid until it dies. And those were all valid ways of getting power and using power to advance forward in the story. This has kind of like narrowed it down to you need Scadutree fragments. You have to get Scadutree fragments. I imagine that if people ever speedrun this like DLC, they will have to route around picking up like the precise number of Scadutree fragments that they need to clear certain bosses.
There'll be somebody who beats the hardest boss in this game with a freaking Guitar Hero controller at level 1.
If they
Already
do,
happened.
if someone beats this DLC with a Guitar Hero controller, level 1, no Erdtree fragments, I will honestly be actually incredibly impressed, because I'm telling you, like, the scaling that happens with those fragments is significant, to the point to where you could like poise break all you want and get those back stabs and front stabs. I don't know what you call it, when they stagger and they go down to one knee and you can kind of get the free hit on them. Like, you could do that all you want and you're still just shaving tiny chips off that big health bar, and then they hit you once and it's game over. It's game over, and it becomes a war of attrition at that point. And that's how I've kind of felt about a lot of fights so far, is that they feel like wars of attrition versus like, there is an element of learning the boss and an element of figuring out their moveset and dealing with their moveset, but there's also an idea of like, I need to honestly just output as much offense as I can as fast as I can, because if I don't kill this guy, he's probably in the long term gonna kill me. And like, I can't always keep dodging. I can't perfect this over and over again. I think that is some of the friction that players are feeling right now, is they're like, the bar for performance and that war of attrition is higher than it's ever been in this game, like to millennia levels. And that's my personal opinion. I know there's probably people that are going to be in the comments of this YouTube video going like, you just got to get good, you just got to play this game right, brother. And I don't know why they're Hulk Hogan, but like they're not wrong. But I do think there's a deserved conversation to have around like, what does the game require? Like, how many right guesses should you have to make to clear a boss? It's kind of like a fighting game in some ways. Like does guessing wrong once in a fighting game kill you? Like, there are fighting games like that, and they have a very devoted fan base, but that fan base is small and very devoted and has a very high ceiling and even a high floor to getting into it. So like, there are people who are playing this game who got to Moog, who got this far, and are still going like, man, it's kind of tough. This is really asking a lot of me. And I think there's a valid question to say, like, is it asking, like, not too much? I feel like that's where you start getting the, like, oh my God, you can't tell them how to make this game. But is it asking a significant amount that it's going to start turning people away from this game? I do think we're starting to see a little bit of that. Yeah.
Well, I will say, for anyone who is struggling, by the way, I think from what me and the guides team at IGN have figured out, I think it's about 5% increase per Erdtree level. Mm-hmm. So, they add up very quickly. But what I will say, if anyone's struggling with Black Gel Knight, if anyone's struggling with Dancing Lion, if anyone's struggling with, pretty much any of the bosses outside of the final two, there are only really 3 required bosses in this DLC. So if you are struggling with the boss, it is still that Elden Ring thing of, you can like go somewhere else, look for Erdtree fragments. There's a whole world out there to explore, and it's bigger than you might think just looking at the map. And there's a lot of Erdtree fragments. I by the time I finished, I was at like plus 16. I think I know people who were as high as like plus 18. So I imagine like there's probably 20 levels you can get.
I've heard plus 20 is the cap, yeah.
Yeah, so I can't stress enough, don't just throw yourself into a blender constantly in order to try to beat a boss that you're having trouble with. You're meant to not beat these bosses on like the first couple tries, as a way to kind of just get you to explore the world.
Yeah, I think Elden Ring was like that as well. I think that's what got me into the game, was like, oh, this jerk is way too hard. I'm going to go over here. Like, I can't remember the name of the castle. That was one of the first, like, level big challenges that you go through. But it was kind of... I was having too much trouble with it, so I just moved on. I went on, and I just leveled up. And I kind of got obsessed about leveling up, to be honest. I started mowing down those little guys near Maud's place.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the Albinorics, yeah.
Yeah, little frog guys. They're so
those
sad.
Poor guys, they've been through it.
Sorry, you gotta get my stuff. So, what you're saying sounds extremely appealing to me. Just having that chance to wander and look around, but also probably get my ass kicked when I try to actually fight anything.
Yeah.
When you get to Erdtree, you walk in, and it's sort of like Elden Ring, right? Where you just look around, you go, okay, well, here I am. And I think it's worth mentioning that the bar to getting into the DLC is quite high on its own.
Yeah.
Because you have to beat Radon, and you have to beat Mog, who is he's
basically a secret boss.
Yeah.
He's a secret boss. He's an optional boss. So and if you've managed to beat those two bosses, you're pretty far in Elden Ring. So it's saying right there, it's like, this is for high level players. And then you get in, and it was funny picking up Elden Ring for the first time in 2 years and going, okay, I remember this game, and just reacclimating to the controls and like so many mechanics and so many like little intricate things around my build and everything. And I'm like, okay, I remember everything about this game. Gosh, I really did a lot in Elden Ring. Oh my gosh. I did basically everything you could do in Elden Ring short of beating Melania. I am weak. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to keep leveling to 200 or whatever, which would have been what I needed to actually beat her. I wanted to just roll credits and move on with my life. But got into the Erdtree DLC, started wandering around, got through the first Legacy dungeon really easily, got to the Dancing Dragon, and the Dancing Dragon is the biggest troll. It's quality From Software trolling, I have to say, because they're going, oh, you have a bleed build, huh? Well, no, it doesn't work on this guy. Sorry.
Crap.
Oh, you like to just stand back and shoot them with projectiles? Yeah, sorry, you're gonna get completely mowed down, this guy. He has a weird hitbox. He's dancing around like crazy. He has like a zillion combos. He's such a filter boss. And he's such a big invitation to go out and do something else in this game. Go explore elsewhere. Go discover stuff. Get more of those Erdtree fragments and such. So I've been kind of wandering around. I found the big katana. I'm thinking about actually respecking. I have like a level 10 Star Scourge great sword and everything, which is really, really, really good. But I kind of want to try something else and just see how I feel about it. But I mean, there's a lot to explore, but at base, it's more Elden Ring. And I've played a lot of Elden Ring, and I loved it, and it was great. And I don't know if I need more Elden Ring in my life.
I will say to a point Mitch made earlier about like the world that has been created here is really, really gorgeous.
Yeah. Like I mean, as always, yeah.
And I think that like this is my big brain theory, but this feels like Miyazaki and company like paying homage to Berserk specifically with the way the story is constructed, with the sort of characters they have, even with Mikola's obviously like a very good Griffith, I believe his name was, from Berserk. I've not read a lot of Berserk, all right, take it easy on me. But like you have this, you know, band of characters following in Mikola's footsteps, and they want to like help Mikola out, and Mikola the kindly will do great things for our world. And it's a FromSoft game. You know bad things are going to happen to those characters. Nothing good happens to NPCs in FromSoft games. Yeah.
Someone tweeted it, and I don't remember who. I wish I could, but they said that Miyazaki said that he would never make a Berserk game, even despite, like, you know, that Miura is such a big inspiration to him. But with Shadow of the Erdtree, he doesn't need to, because this is basically what a Berserk game would be.
Yes, yeah. It is, like, down to the point that you have all these, like, weird... one of my favorite areas in this, if you want to go find something really cool to explore, I will just kind of gesture to you that down south on, like, a peninsula, there's a hole in the ground, and you should go in that hole in the ground, because there's some cool stuff down there. And I love when Elden Ring gets kind of, you know, almost dreamlike with how massive it can be. I loved the Halig tree in the first game because it wasn't just this like incredible new area that you found, but it felt almost like impossibly constructed. Like it felt like it could only be made by some sort of being trying to will it up from the ground rather than like forming naturally. And I think that there's some incredible stuff in this DLC that has that same vibe, that has that same like, this does not feel natural. This feels like weird and strange. It makes you question like what kind of place you're in, what kind of realm you're in, like what is happening. And I just love so much of that. I think a lot of that is here, and it's really cool how even like traditional FromSoft biomes, like your poison swamps and stuff. Yes, there's a poison swamp. Have been like condensed down and then layered everywhere. Yeah. It's a really interesting, and I think I would be really interested to see like level design breakdowns of some of the areas that you can traverse in this, because it is more densely layered on top of itself, because it is theoretically smaller than Elden Ring. Granted, like the area that they talked about, I think they'd said it would be like Limgrave size. Is not Limgrave sized. It is not Limgrave sized.
It's Limgrave size if you stacked 3 or 4 Limgraves on top of each other. Yeah,
it's like Limgrave, Liurnia, and Caelid maybe, like all together. And granted, like some of that stuff. Oh, go ahead.
The best moment in Elden Ring was when you go down the elevator and come out into the
Shifa River.
The Shifa River, yeah. So good.
And I think they took that lesson from the response to that and maybe kind of had a lot of that in Erdtree. When you said that it was, so it's very stacked on top of one another and very dense. That was the first.
A lot of elevators in this game. A lot of elevators.
Yeah.
A lot of elevators and a lot of holes you jump down into.
There are multiple.
I found one of those holes.
There are multiple times in this DLC, and they actually had to tell us pre-release, like, "Hey, this is the thing you're going to have to do." There are places where you're going to have to jump from a height that seems like it would kill you, and it won't. You're just going to have to trust, and it always hits every time. Okay. Yeah,
I found a cliff.
I found a cliff, and I saw a lot of shadows jumping off it. And I was like, "What?"
Well,
if it's like an actual like mountain cliff, probably not supposed to jump off it.
Yeah, here's the weird thing: if you can see the ground, it's probably a bad idea. If you can't see the ground, probably a good idea.
The message was going like leap of faith and stuff like that, and I'm like,
Well, that might be me. That might be me, because I do find it entertaining to put like fake messages in this game, to put like illusion ahead in front of a wall that does not have an illusory wall.
I found several of those. It said liar ahead and stuff. I'm like, how do you get into this wall?
I love the language that has evolved from software games, and just the notes on the.
It's pretty great. Yeah. Can you still use your ashes, like your wolves and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And
you get
the revealing spirit ashes
ones.
Sorry, what was that?
There are like 20 new ones.
Yeah,
there's a lot of new ones. Yeah.
I will say they're pretty weak though. the ones I found have been pretty weak.
I just use Mimic Tier.
Black Knife Tish is my go-to. Tish has always had my bag. Yeah.
Yeah, Tish and Mimic Tier are definitely the big ones.
There's one new one I found that was like demi-human swordsman guy, and he's all right. He does okay. But yeah, I would say that a lot of the ashes you get are like, they're cool, they're fun, they're novel. I don't know if they work. Whereas like the weapons that you're getting that are like the completely new weapon types that you get are pretty cool. Like the twin swords you get from one of the remembrances in this game, really sick. Really sick. The backhand blades have like some really cool motions on them where you can kind of like combo. And the Milady that you can get pretty early on in Ensis has like a cool thing where you can combo the R2 into the R1 and things like that, I think, where you can kind of like move between them. And it's a lot of ways where you can see FromSoft kind of like soft testing ideas of like, what if we rethought the way that weapons worked in this way? What if we rethought the way that weapons worked in this way? And it's kind of interesting to see that like being tested out in Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yeah, they really did a great job with the new weapon types. The light greatsword, like you're saying, the combos flow together very, very smoothly and in interesting kind of ways, and allow you to just keep attacking in ways that looks right, rather than just doing an animation and doing an animation. And then you got the martial arts weapons. You do flying jump kick, stagger an enemy, then charge up a palm blast, and then knock them down. It's really, really cool. They have the beast claws, which turn you into Wolverine from Marvel vs. Capcom. You just like continuously slash.
Berserker Barrage.
Can you have them? Can you have them on both hands?
Yeah.
Yes.
And what's cool is that like one of the new things about the new weapon types is that you don't need 2 of a weapon to get 2 of them. You just dual wield it, and you'll have two of the same sword.
Sweet.
Yeah. So the 2-hand command, because everybody who picked Elden Ring back up was trying to remember, number one, how to get on their horse, and number two, how to like 2-hand a weapon. It is you hold Y or triangle if you're on PlayStation. I play on PC. You hold that top button, and then you, while holding it, hit the button of whatever hand, so LB or RB, depending on what hand the weapon is in, and you'll swap to 2-handing that one and then swap off.
Okay, I gotta give that a
it
shot.
makes sense, but yeah, you always forget it because it's like no other game uses this many like hotkeys and macros and stuff like that.
Weird.
Yeah. Oh man. Sorry. Go ahead, Kat.
No, you go.
So I was just gonna say, like, I started doing the bleed build strategy, and it's one of those kind of things where you just like wires get crossed in your brain because you have to like 2-hand your left-handed sword, do seppuku to stab yourself, and then bring back the other sword and then do another seppuku, and then you gotta wait. Before that, you have to do your incantation, so you have to switch to your whatever,
Your physic,
and do
yeah.
golden vow, and they do whatever other buff,
yeah.
and then you drink the physics. So it's like before you even try to fight a boss, you gotta go through this whole half long prep, and it breaks my brain sometimes.
I was just doing swarm of flies over and over again. It works surprisingly well on some enemies. You just swarm of flies over and over again. And I did switch, so I was doing bleed build for a little bit because I was kind of swapped into bleed build by the end of my run of Elden Ring. I swapped back and went full dex with the Bolt of Gransax, which is that like spear that you can throw as a lightning thing that you get near the end of the game from the capital. And I was just reminding myself of how fun this game is when you have like a build that you really gel with and you get into like a really like long combat that feels good. And I think that's maybe why it frustrates me a little bit how hard enemies hit in this DLC, because it feels like I want to have those long engagements, whereas like if they can just like 2-touch you, then you're kind of playing a different game. It's not really like a long engagement. It's like I'm trying to stay alive. They're just trying to like get that one hit on me and end it. And that's kind of like my takeaway from this DLC broadly, is that like I do wonder if they're ever going to tune that, or if they're okay with where it is and it's just going to be this like really high watermark challenge for FromSoft players, which like that could be good in its own way, but I'd be interested to see that, because I feel like Elden Ring was a huge, it's weird to say breakthrough game for FromSoft.
Yeah,
but like it was like it took them from being one of the most eminent developers on the scene to being like the big daddy of video game development. Like every new FromSoft game is going to be a huge deal. And I'd be curious whether they expected newcomers for this, because obviously, like we said, the DLC requirements are pretty high. Whether they expect people will just want to pick up Elden Ring in general, because that does happen sometimes. But like, yeah, I'd be curious to see whether this actually generates an influx of new Elden Ring players, or whether this becomes like just a like high watermark challenge for the people who already love Elden Ring.
I think that just by virtue of the big filter, I bet a lot of people didn't get as far as beating Mog in Elden Ring. I'd be curious to know what the completion percentages on the original Elden Ring were. So
I think there were stories about the Steam trophies, and it said like 1/3 of players or something. Yeah.
So think about that, and then think about how many of them actually pick up the Erdtree DLC. So I don't think it'll generate a new influx of Elden Ring fans. It is it is just by its very nature a super hardcore challenge for the hardest of hardcore fans, I think. One of the questions that I was kind of wondering for all of y'all is, so Elden Ring came out 2 years ago, and it was by acclamation Game of the Year. I think a lot of people would say that it's one of the top all-time games out there, one of the best Soulsborne games. And I'm just curious, how do you feel coming back to it after 2 years, a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of gaming experiences, a little bit of distance from when you were originally playing it? How does it hit? I'm curious. I'll start with you, Mitchell.
It still hits really strongly. I think there's still not really a lot of games that capture that same level of exploration and discovery Elden Ring does. I think Dragon's Dogma 2 probably comes the closest. It's that feeling that kind of I was talking about earlier, where you're not guided towards anything, so whatever you discover feels like a discovery that you made. And when those discoveries lead to rewarding things, like a whole other side of the map that looks beautiful and has new scary enemies and new bosses and new treasures to discover, it's a really powerful feeling, I think. And there's not a lot of open world games that really replicate that feeling. So yeah, I think I think it hits really strong still.
I agree with you, Mitchell. I think there are a lot of games that have tried to replicate the Soulsborne feeling. You can throw a rock and hit a half dozen half-ass Soulsborne games, and nobody does it better than From Software on a lot of levels. And some of it is just they have enough money now and enough budget that they can really produce some incredible spectacles. I don't think there's basically any game that does spectacle on the level of an Elden Ring specifically. I'm constantly wowed by how cool the boss battles are. And one of the things that I really like about them is that they make their spectacle really organic to the boss battle itself. You're not just watching a hands-off cutscene. It is part of the actual action. One of the things that I loved the most in Bloodborne when you're fighting the final boss is they will jump up and do their super attack, and they're framed by the full moon, and you're like, I'm gonna die now. And it's so cool to look at in the moment, and you just don't see a lot of games do that. That's why I tend to take games that rely really heavily on cutscene moments to convey their action a little bit more lightly. So in that context, From Software, just hardly any developer does it better than them. And there's so much mystery, there's so many cool surprises, so many interesting boss battles, very challenging.
Nobody beats them for environmental storytelling. Like FromSoft is the absolute best.
Yeah.
I do hope that you do get to the final boss of this DLC, because it is an all-timer.
Really? Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
it's really good.
Okay. How about you, Eric?
Sorry, I'm dealing with an angry cat. I don't know. So I already know I have not finished all of the DLC yet. I know what the final boss is. I kind of have some lore thoughts about the directions they took with this character and with this story. Mostly just I think I need to fill in some gaps on my own side and play there myself to get there. As a guides person, you kind of have to like know what everything is before you get to it in the game yourself sometimes, and so that kind of sucks. But I think it's a really interesting DLC. I think it's really neat. I don't know if I'm like the hottest on it for reasons I kind of outlined, but I do, if nothing else, I do see it as a really cool, like, this is a big challenge for people who have wanted even more challenge out of Elden Ring, for people who played Millennia and were like, I want more of this. There's certainly a lot of situations in which FromSoft throws some really cool stuff at you, some great sights, some incredible places to see, and just see realized in this video game. And also, like I said earlier, it's really cool to see FromSoft kind of designing in real time and thinking of ideas and toying around with stuff in the space and saying, like, what could we add to Elden Ring to build upon it, to change it up. Even like Erdtree stuff feels like them experimenting with, what if we did a different kind of power scaling that wasn't inherently reliant on killing things to get power, but what if it was based on exploration instead and finding things to get power? How does that change the landscape? So I find it interesting in that way. I just also in the moment have a lot of frustration with it, of like, I'm at this boss, I want to get past this boss, I need to beat this boss, but like, all this game is telling me is like, go find Erdtree fragments, which are not like easy necessarily to find. They are intentionally hidden in the world, and they are usually hidden behind like catacombs and special areas and things that you need to deal with special enemies to beat and stuff like that. And so it all feels like it's kind of wrapping around to be just a very interesting difficulty problem. that I think people are going to be talking about for a while, and we'll probably continue to have discourse about for a while. But if we're talking about it, that means it's an interesting game. It's an inherently neat game, so I like it for that. And I also like a lot of the god drama and Mikula stuff and Berserk references, so I vibe with it on just like tone and aesthetics alone. So I find it really, really cool. I just have like all these weird asterisks I keep putting on any recommendation I would have for like an Elden Ring fan to like know what you're getting into when you get into it.
And Nadia, how are you feeling about Elden Ring a couple years on?
I still have to get the DLC. Like I said, I'm going to be doing Dawn Trail first, but hearing about it has made me kind of excited to go back to it. It's just remembering how my character, I worked really hard to get Blythe's outfit. It looks really cool. I don't want that to go to waste. I look like a wolf person. So yeah, I will be going back to it. It's just a matter of time and when, because like I said, Dawn Trail's coming and it's a busy summer, as it always is.
Yeah, a lot of games to play, as usual. Very grindy games. I will say that it has gotten its hooks into me again a little bit. Where last night before going to bed, I fired it up briefly because I was like, "Oh, I gotta go explore this one lake. There's like a dragon there or something. And, oh wow, there's a sword." And I feel like there's a lot of places that I can go and continue to discover in Erdtree. So that's compelling to me. But final thoughts on the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, Mitchell?
I am just phenomenally glad that they don't have as many of those bosses where you like delete one health bar and then all of a sudden you have to do another health bar of something, because they did that a lot in the base game and it drove me crazy. Because you'd be perfect at the first fight, the first phase of the fight would basically be, a formality. You're like, okay, I'm just doing this so I can get to the part that I'm having trouble with. And thankfully they don't do that in the DLC. So I'm just very thankful for that.
Thinking about the number of times I played against that giant, the mountain giant or whatever.
The fire giant, I think.
Yeah. Just riding around, doing the exact motions over and over and over again until I finally got it perfect. But that's Elden Ring for you. But Shadow of the Erdtree, it's available now on your console of choice, assuming it's not a Nintendo console.
It's on Switch. It runs at like 15 frames per second.
It's being highly reviewed. Go check out Mitchell's review over on IGN.com. Maybe we'll have some additional thoughts on Erdtree as the summer progresses. I'm not done with it yet. We'll see how far I am able to get. I don't know if I'm actually going to finish it. I do really want to get back to finishing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, among other games.
Yes,
but,
talk about that.
I got to talk about that ending at some point. But yeah, all right. That's it for our discussion about Shadow of the Erdtree. It's time now for a series of random encounters. Embracer has shuttered Pieces Interactive, the developer behind Alone in the Dark, the latest in a series of layoffs that, in a year racked by layoffs. Todd Howard confirms at least one more Starfield expansion is in development after Shattered Space. Rejoice, Starfield fan! That Starfield fan being me. Bethesda doesn't feel the need to rush out a Fallout, meanwhile, even though it's very popular. Side note, I watched a couple more episodes of Fallout. Gosh, that show is really violent to the point where I'm kind of like, oh, okay, like this is maybe even a level above where I really want to be. But
that's kind of why I skipped out on it. It's just really? Not everything has to be this violent, but apparently
it's good. I mean, I finished episode 4, and it was like a good episode and everything, and the production quality is really high, but just the scene with the finger was just like,
I'm squeamish.
Among other things. Yeah.
I watched it with my wife, who typically nopes out of really violent stuff, and she was able to handle it for the most part because it's a lot of cartoony violence. It's like so ridiculous that I think she was able to kind of stomach it.
But Black Myth Wukong has been delayed on Xbox for additional optimization. Mitchell, you got to play it and you did a hands-on preview. We were talking earlier about how developers try. There are a million Soulsborns, but not a lot of games that actually manage to hit the levels of an Elden Ring or a Bloodborne. And having played Black Myth Wukong, very brief thoughts on it.
I don't know if it's hitting the level of Elden Ring. But I think it is incredibly gorgeous. The combat is very fluid. It feels good. It feels good to play a Souls-like game where your character is this agile, and it's it's much more based around dodging than it is blocking. So it kind of has like that Bayonetta style of dodges where you can dodge really quickly up to 3 times, but on that third dodge, you're gonna take a very hefty kind of punishment. So yeah, I think it's a really, really cool game. It is kind of linear. It's very linear compared to most Souls-likes that I've played. But I'm very interested to play more of it.
Larian says mod support in Baldur's Gate 3 will be a final handover moment for players. Final Fantasy XIV server capacity has been increased by 50% to prep for the launch of Dawn Trail. Batten Kaitos is getting a surprise release on Steam. It's out now. You go play it.
I didn't know that.
Shout out to my colleague Reb, known Batten Kaitos fan. I think Victor's a big Batten Kaitos fan too.
Yeah.
He was like,
That sounds right.
"Did you know that it's out on Steam?" And I was like, I think he wanted us to do the whole episode about that. And finally, Boku no Natsuyasumi's successor, Natsumon, has been listed on Steam with an English localization set for August. Also, there was a Nintendo Direct over this past week. A bunch of games were revealed. Here are some of the big ones. Well, first of all, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, the first real Zelda game. That CDI game doesn't count. That is actually starring Zelda. And when they were showing that trailer, I was watching. So I watched the Nintendo Direct from. I was laying very flat in a bed in a room in London with COVID, and I watched the Nintendo Direct. And initially, it came up, and I was like, "Oh, are they doing a Link Between Worlds remake on the Nintendo Switch?"
Yeah.
Which
I mean, that's kind of sick, I guess. I'd play Link Between Worlds again. I was preparing for that tweet. And then all of a sudden, it's a Zelda game. And she's making chairs. So many chairs.
And tables and beds.
Tables and beds and chairs. And enemies. So she has a staff, and she can use that to replicate enemies, I guess, and items and objects. And there's a really strong creative puzzle-solving aspect. So they really took the organic puzzle-solving from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and put that into a top-down 2D Zelda game.
Especially Tears of the Kingdom. That's I think what I like about the look of it is a lot of Zelda games rely on logic puzzles, and I'm not a logical person. So here comes Tears of the Kingdom, which is like you can cobble together any solution you want, just as long as you get it done, and that's my kind of shit. So, I mean, you should see the thing I cobbled out on my balcony to catch the water that's coming off my air conditioner. Like, it's like a Tupperware thing that drains into a bucket and is kind of held together with literally a croquet mallet. That's what's weighing it down. And
the Goldberg machine.
That's the kind of stuff I make. I don't look at things like I was the kind of kid who was like, "Oh God, we have to draw plans for a wood shop. No, give me a piece of wood and I'll hammer it. Hey, this looks cool. Let's hammer more wood on it." And that's what I like. Like there were people who were saying, "Oh, I don't like the kind of free-form puzzle solving you get in Tears of the Kingdom." But that's I don't know. It feels good to have puzzle games that are for me. Those are pretty rare, to be honest with you. Just whatever. Because I understand they're probably hard to make. Like. Having a game that matches my mindset, that's an accomplishment. So good for you, Nintendo. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, that freeform puzzle solving seems to be more and more of Nintendo's kind of, or especially Zelda's approach. And I think there are plenty of people who would prefer the super handcrafted, here's a solution. Effectively, you're playing in a giant escape room kind of situation. But I think there's merit to both approaches. I've seen plenty of people say, "Gosh, I wish this game were called Legend of Link."
She's on the other foot, Ned.
That'd be cool.
I mean, it's finally time, right? Call it Legend of Link. I've seen plenty of people say Zelda's gone woke, and it's like, okay.
Link's Awakening.
Ah,
Oh,
The Woke Waker. Wait, the Wind Woker. I don't know.
Windwoker, I think.
I like Wind
Wind
Woker
Woker's pretty
because
good.
it like switches it up, you know.
Yeah.
Mitchell, Eric, thoughts on the Windwoker?
Can I talk about the Nintendo Direct? Because I have one question, especially for Mitch here.
Oh.
When's
When's
Marvel,
Marvel,
baby?
baby?
When's Marvel, baby? We're back. Oh man.
You want to learn how to do a mother infinite?
Light punch, heavy kick.
My husband is so
punch.
angry that it's not on Xbox because he loves the Xbox controller, and so I'm gonna have to get him an adapter. Do you have any good recommendations?
An adapter for what?
Yeah, that you can
Coming out on
like,
PC.
let's say like PlayStation to Xbox controller. Like, can that be done?
Oh yeah. I mean, you could also just buy it on PC. It's going to be on Steam. So
Yeah, but we don't. He wants to play it on PS5. We don't. I have the only gaming computer.
yeah. There might be like some conversion stuff out there. I'd look into like Brooks stuff and all that. There are probably some things out there. I had a feeling that this was going to happen for a long time because Arcade 1-Up had done the cabinet, and usually when that happens, it's not long afterwards that like some sort of like revival occurs. And Marvel was always like the golden goose, right? It was like the thing that like if we got this, we got this. It was the white whale. That's what I was looking for. The other animal.
But did you expect it to happen at Nintendo Direct?
At a Nintendo
That's the
Direct,
interesting
and
part,
in a collection that like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, obviously the highlight, but like in a collection with like X-Men, Children of the Atom, the Punisher, the first Marvel and stuff like that. X-Men vs. Street Fighter is in there too, which I think is a heavily underrated fighting game.
And never had a console port, I think, right?
Which
Yeah.
one of those
really?
are the best?
Which one of them is the best? It's Marvel. It's Marvel all day.
Marvel.
I love
Marvel
NBC
vs.
too.
Capcom
That game is immaculate. It's
I mean,
so
I love it. I love it. It's very
so
busted.
busted. Yeah. Like the X-Men are comically overpowered in that game to the point that like they are all like the S tiers, your Magnetos, your Cables, your Sentinels and stuff like that. Like the S tiers are all X-Men and it's great.
Storm.
Oh god. Someone had a joke that was like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is going to have a lab, so now Justin can prove whether his Hailstorm does more damage or not. And like that was like seeing the revival of the MVC. I mean, it's not like it was a revival. I mean, MVC and MVC3 specifically were like back during the pandemic era when a lot of people started to get back into that stuff through Fightcade. But like to see the community just have this renewal of life, the Max Dude clip that was going around of him just like shrieking in happiness, like how can you not be excited? like it's like Mitchell, you can probably talk more to it too, because like we're both pretty deep into the fighting games at this point, but like it's such an exciting revival that I hope means there is more in the future. Maybe not like we don't need new Marvel vs. Capcom would be fun, but I would love to see like MVC2 never got its revival tournament at EVO because that EVO got shut down. So I would love to see MVC2 get its like second chance at the revival.
I'd love to see Infinity get a Realm Reborn, just because I'm so angry about that one, because I had Mega Man X as the starring character, and it was such garbage. The story was garbage, the graphics were garbage. I understand the gameplay was garbage too, and I'm still angry about that, and I really wish they'd just scrub it clean and build it back up from the start, but they probably never will. I think it's just in memory hold, isn't it?
Yeah.
MVC3 had 0.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yeah,
Yes,
but Mega
yeah.
Man X was like
Lightning
Really good character, too.
Yeah.
I think he was broken. Isn't he banned for? Every
He's
time I
not
hear about
banned.
Zero in a
No,
fighting game, he's banned.
He has a mechanic called lightning loops that is very like busted if you can land it. It's very like it's dexterous. It requires like inputs, but like it's good if you can play it. But like that's Marvel. Like the idea of Marvel is that like the characters are high floor, high ceiling. Like you are learning how to play a very complicated character that has very busted things if you know how to use them right. And then you are trying to enact your game plan on the opponent.
Yeah, I actually, I'm not the biggest fan of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, mainly because of the fact that if you don't have, like, I think it's really fun at a casual level, but when you get beyond that, if you don't have a combo with all three of your characters to kill the character from 0 to death, you are bad at the game. Like, you're not great at the game.
Yeah.
and it's also like, there's no combo breakers, like, so you're basically stuck in a combo for minutes at a time. It is one of those games where if you guess wrong once, you lose your character. So it's a game where I get why people love it, because they probably love it for all those reasons. And it's just I prefer to have a couple more chances before I lose a game.
It feels weird to say that, like, I think it's a hype game to watch. Like, as a spectator sport,
Yeah.
I have loved watching, like, high-level Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And so, yeah, like, there's a part of me that is excited to play this definitely way more casually than, like my team in MVC2 is a very casual. I run, like, Psylocke, Iron Man, Cable, and that's not, like, a very high-level team. That's not, like, an optimized team. It's just the characters that I like to play as. But, like... There's definitely like a gulf between like the people casually playing it and then like when you get to that high level, and if you're stuck in that like Mariana Trench, if you're stuck in the trench between them, it is not great.
That's me, perpetually trapped in the fighting game trench.
Fighting game
But to
Mariana
go back
Trench.
to Zelda real quick.
Yeah. So Zelda and Marvel vs. Capcom.
Hell yeah, now we're talking.
No, I think what I wanted to say about Zelda is that, like, you guys talked about like the improv nature of the puzzles, but there's also the combat that's kind of improvised, because you can get enemies as well, and use enemies to solve different like combat situations, which I really gel with. Like, that's my thing. I love being able to come up with my own solutions to handle a challenging combat encounter. So like the shot where he throws a rock in front of an enemy, and the enemy hits the rock and recoils back. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, oh, I'm into this game.
There's also a scene where she has a redead that she unleashes onto moblins, and the moblins are terrified and immobilized. That was just so cute.
That's awesome. I'm very excited for that game. I cannot wait.
I think Nintendo hasn't even begun to show its hand with this one, so I'm really looking forward to it.
There are two more announcements I think we need to shout out from the Direct. Number one, Fantasian escaped the Apple Arcade jail.
Yeah.
Yay! Huzzah.
I hear that actually Sakaguchi, because he's so into Final Fantasy XIV, that kind of got him back into touch with Square, and that's part of what happened.
I would love that if
really
that was the actual tale, that like someone could get so deep into 14 that they just like start working with Square.
That's deep. Like,
That's
he
beautiful.
would be like, he played the game all the way through and just kind of disassembled everything like that he knew about the series, and apparently he's just went through it like crazy, and people are wondering how he did it. But I love that story. It's true.
Maybe rumors of a sequel as well, I think.
I think I've heard something about that.
Yeah, he had a statement that was like, I had planned on this being my last game, and that definitely like sparked some fire around like, oh, so it's not your last game. But number two, and I think like the incredibly surprising thing for most people, Romancing Saga 2 Remake? Like,
oh yeah, it's pretty cool, didn't it?
What the heck?
Kawazu did it again.
Yeah.
Like, of all the things to go and remake, and then the way it looked, the vibes were just incredible. I sat there and I was like, I'm gonna have to play a Saga, aren't I? I'm gonna have to sit here and play a Saga game. I'm going to have to Saga.
What about Mario RPGs? No Mario RPG.
Kawazu Energy.
I cannot wait for Mario and Luigi.
That's gonna be so
Brothership.
great.
Yeah.
For Brothership.
Because I actually, like, the Mario RPG remake was so good. The Thousand Year Door, I just finished that, was incredible. So this looks fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this. I wonder who's working on it, though.
Yeah, so Totillo had a quote on GameFile. Stephen Totillo of GameFile had a quote saying that, like, he had learned that there were some original people from the Mario and RPG stuff working on this. So whatever some means and who those people are is a great question, but like there is at least some DNA being inherited from the likes of previous Mario RPG stuff. Obviously Alpha Dream closed down and all that. So I just like the idea. When I heard Brothership, I was imagining like, oh, so the one where Mario and Luigi try to resurrect their dead mom, and then Mario loses his arm.
It looks pretty
I was thinking,
cool.
hey, don't strip brothers. That's not moral. Don't do that.
Yeah. But the thing that I think stood out to me is I'm ready to give HG2D another chance with the Dragon Quest III, which looks quite beautiful, I have
It looks
to
nice.
say.
I'm so excited. And yes, there are the two others coming too.
Yeah, confirmation they're doing 1 and 2 next year.
They're doing 1 and 2, so it's not all one big collection. You get 3, and then later on they're going to have 1 and 2. And they had a huge collector's edition that looks like a giant book. and then you can
Yeah.
get basically and they have space for 1 and 2 as well as 3.
Oh, I didn't see that. That's cool.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
love when
I like
they do
that idea.
that. Yeah.
I have to get
Also,
that.
apparently Yuji Horii is penning new scenarios for DQ3.
I am so hyped for that. Like DK, Jesus, DQ3
DK.
is just DK
Dragon
and Dragon
Kong.
Warriors. He's got his coconut gun. Who needs the sword of Erdtree when he got the coconut gun and his coconut cream pies? But
Fire hurts. If you choose to, it's gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt. I love that Grant Kirkhope actually apologized to Donkey Kong rap.
There's nothing to apologize for. That's a piece of American culture. Or I guess
American
worldwide
culture by a
culture.
Brit.
Yeah. American culture by a Brit. There you go.
But I'm very much looking forward to Dragon Quest III. It is a very important game to me.
Why hasn't Donkey Kong had an RPG yet? You could play as
He
all the
he was in
all the
one of
Songs.
Yeah, but like a
Yeah,
Donkey
yeah.
Kong RPG. Like you have Donkey Kong, Cranky Kong, Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong, Funky Kong. Like you have all the different Kongs.
Yeah.
And then you can have like some other characters come in, some original characters and stuff like that. But it'd be a Donkey Kong Country RPG would be pretty cool.
Right,
I agree.
Nintendo, it's yours.
Game. Dream Fight, Dream Match.
I don't want the Kongs to fight each other. There's something that feels wrong about that. That feels like we're at the Donkey Kong family reunion and like everybody got a little too lit and somebody
Like
said
the episode
something.
of the bear.
Yeah,
One of them
and-
drives the car through a
And then
wall.
Cranky Kong just like pulls a chair out and just like slams somebody with it.
Did he popping peanuts everywhere?
On top of the direct, a subplot of the direct is that a really well-known leaker named Pioro
Oh, jeez.
finally got outed. People figured out how they were getting their information. Either they or someone they know at Nintendo, Nintendo of Japan apparently had access to the website backend. And people were able to kind of figure out what they had access to based on the stuff that they were actually leaking. And then they did an interview with Jason Schreier and were surprised when their quotes were used in an article, apparently not really understanding how journalism works. And
we need media literacy in the schools again. We need
They
to
really
open the
do.
schools.
I just love how it wasn't even like, wait, I told you that off the record. It was just like, wait, I didn't know you were
Wait a
gonna
minute,
post
I talked
this.
to you.
And
what?
Kat, I'm sure you can attest to moments this has happened as well, but as someone who has done investigative reporting in their life, you would not believe how often that comes up where people are like,
Yeah.
wait, you can just write what I told you? And like, yes, that's how reporting
that's the
works.
idea.
That's how it happens.
That's why I'm here. You think I'm here to be a friend?
You
know?
negotiate it, or it's assumed to be on the record until it's not.
Yes. And even then, like, off the record is not like a magical word that you say
No,
where
it's
you're
not a
like,
guarantee.
I declare off the record, and
I
like
do
that's
declare
yeah, it's
off
not
I killed
like,
a man.
it's not like a
Enough
magic
off the
spell.
record.
It's like like Kat said, it's
No
something that you
takesy backsies.
discuss.
You said it. It's on
Yeah.
the record.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So, but of course, there's someone new called Ada Wong or something has emerged on
Ada
Resetera,
Wong.
That was great
Right.
too.
and apparently they accurately predicted the direct. And y'all, why do y'all need leakers? Why?
Here's
It's gonna get revealed anyway.
remember what Waddle Dee Knows taught us. All right, remember what Waddle Dee Knows taught us. But also, yeah, like I've for years, like even like granted, I came into this industry through like sports and then esports and then games, but I was always like. Leaking stuff has always been very strange to me. I mean, there are roster moves in sports, and that's a big thing. But, like, even then, I find the more interesting part of investigating and reporting to be, like, doing something that feels like it's to the benefit of the industry and the shared space that we're all in. Like reporting for good. Like, a lot of industry reporting and stuff like that is very important. I've never really found leaking to be personally appealing to me. I've also, like... the amount of like readership it garners is kind of up and down depending on what you get. Like I've seen some leak stories do very, very well. I've seen some do not very well. And it's ultimately like, what are you serving by doing this? And it is just kind of a like cloud game where you're trying to be like the biggest leaker in town and all that. It is very like personal, self-serving. And if that's what you want to go for, that's what you want to go for. I'm not going to judge anybody, but like, it is something that I just kind of go like, yeah, you're playing a high risk game. And the second you mess up, the second you get something wrong, you have basically staked your entire personality and reputation on being right. And the second you're not right, it goes kablooey. So, yeah, I don't know.
But I love that leakers out there always having excuse. Oh, I wasn't actually making prediction. I was just speculating based on knowledge, or I guess plans changed, etc., etc., etc. They always have an excuse.
The clock says that we are currently in the goofing hour, and the goofing hour was happening while I was saying that stuff. So we were just goofing. Like, that wasn't real.
It's opposite day, don't you know?
What did you think of the Nintendo Direct, dear listener? I want to hear your thoughts. I thought it was really strong, actually. And boy, it really made me 100% more excited about what I'm going to be playing on my Nintendo Switch come the holiday, even without Metroid Prime 4 coming out in 2024. So pretty impressive for... Somebody said, how does Nintendo keep schooling everybody else with basically a glorified Android tablet that's 7 years old now, or something like that?
Yeah, I saw that tweet. That's actually very true. It is a 7-year-old Android tablet, and they're killing it still.
Still killing it after all these years. But all right, we're rolling into the tavern now. Settle in, chat about what we've been playing. Mitchell, you've been playing Destiny 2, The Final Shape. How have you been finding time for all of this?
It's a good question. Usually, I save myself 4 hours between 8:30 and 12:30 when my baby goes to sleep and when I go to sleep, and that's my time to play games for me. So I ended up beating the Destiny 2 Final Shape campaign on Legendary, and what happened after the raid is that when people beat the raid, basically the ending of the Final Shape unlocked for everyone, and it's such a cool moment because basically, like, it contextualizes the raid in the story. They're like, all right team, a brave team of 6 guardians have finally opened up this chance for us to defeat the Witness once and for all. And you get like this shot of 1,000 random looking guardians all marching forward on the Witness, and you control one of them in a team of 12 that just randomly matchmake. You're all doing this final mission for the first time, and it's just chills. It's so good. I've never experienced a finale to a game story quite like it. It's just unbelievable.
Nice.
Speaking of 7-year-old games, Destiny 2 I think came out the same year as the Nintendo Switch.
It's
really?
Still going. Oh man, I can't believe that they pulled it off. Like they crafted this 10-year story of that's just been really compelling for me to follow along with, both in terms of playing it and in terms of watching 13-hour lore breakdown videos from YouTube. I think it's just a really special game, and I think it's really cool because Destiny didn't start hot. Like it got off to a rocky start. And I think
Destiny 1 and 2 got off to rocky.
Yeah,
arguably, yeah.
And I think the way Bungie has been able to consistently, patch it and improve it and listen to feedback and keep it fresh all throughout this decade has been really, really impressive, especially in a time where live service games basically have been falling they've been dropping like flies. But yeah, everyone should play Destiny. I know it's a hard game to get into, but
you can't even play the base game anymore, right? Like the base campaign,
I know
it's
got issues.
Yeah, I really wish they would find a way to take care of that, because again, I always play the 14 versus Destiny 2 game of when I'm going back and playing a bunch of stuff in old 14 content right now, and they just let you go back and play it as if as it was back then, and you can do it with all current stuff right now. And a lot of Destiny, the story of Destiny 2 has been sunsetting content, putting stuff in the vault, bringing it back every now and then as part of a celebration, sometimes getting in trouble for the ways in which they bring it back. And I understand the logistical realities of why they do that, especially with a game like Destiny compared to Final Fantasy 14. But it is kind of a bummer when you're trying to catch back up, and it feels like they have tried to make on roads and on ramps, but the best way is still like people will just tell you go watch a like 3-hour YouTube video to learn the story up to this point, because nothing in the game is going to match up to that.
Yeah.
Shareable Texas says, ask Mitchell if Destiny 2 is an RPG. The battle must be fought once more.
No, it wasn't.
If Mitchell's anything.
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I would say...
I mean, one of the first things that people praise about Destiny is that it feels really good as a shooter, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can see it going both ways. I think it, first and foremost, is a shooter. You play the game with shooter mechanics. It feels incredible as a shooter. I still think that Destiny 2 is the best feeling first-person shooter I've ever played. In terms of how the guns, just in terms of how the guns feel, how different all the guns are, and even though they're all different, they all kind of feel good in their own way. But then you also have the MMO aspect of it, where you're just stuck in a ungodly amount of systems that you have to decipher with like all kinds of different currencies and crafting and just a ton of different things to understand. So I see it both ways. I still fall back on what am I doing most of the time? I'm shooting things. I think it's a shooter.
Well, there you have it. Destiny 2 is a shooter. Now, please reset the clock. 0 days since we last had a discussion about what is an RPG. Nadia, speaking of not RPGs, Metroid Zero Mission. You just play it?
I love that game.
That was a surprise drop from the direct, which made me realize, okay, if we're getting a Metroid Zero drop, it means we must be getting Metroid 4 information. But either way, it's great because, first thing I did was I went back to Zero Mission and I played through it. It's just such a
holds up.
Just like I find Metroidvanias these days are more focused on difficulty than exploration, which is very much the case for Dread, as much as I love Dread. So if you want even an entry point to Metroid, this is a great game. I've finished my run through. It's pretty incredible. I didn't get a good ending because I'm slow. I like to explore, especially since I haven't played Zero Mission in years.
Low key up to the speed running game in the Metroid series. It's beautiful. It's just such a really good rethink of the original Metroid. I would say it's the second best game in the series, maybe even a notch above a Metroid, and it added so much to the lore, like Zero Suit Samus and whatnot. So
what's the first best to you? Is it Super?
It's always Super Metroid forever. I like Super Metroid. If I were to pick a game that's just the best game ever, I would probably pick Super Metroid.
Symphony of the Night.
Symphony of the Night is an excellent game as well. It's definitely in the top 20, probably in the top 100 somewhere. But Metroid Zero Mission, I gotta go back and replay that sometime because
I find the storytelling is actually very cute. Like when you get to the you can get your suit back and you go back to the Chozo ruin and you see Samus is kind of when she was a kid. Yeah, she drew a little scribble on it. That was very cute.
They've done a really bad job for the most part of doing the world building around Metroid.
They tried. The problem with Other M, and I was a massive Metroid head during the early aughts when they were really trying to revive the series, and they had interactive mangas and whatnot. And the manga which you can read now pretty much anywhere. It's very good, and it does deal with Samus having PTSD because she watched her parents get eaten by Ridley. But
wait, really?
They really. Well, she didn't see it, but he told her, "Yeah, I ate your parents," by the way.
Oh, okay.
And
LOL.
Very casual.
LOL. Very casual. And so she's a little kid. Obviously, she has PTSD about the whole thing. And there's actually a very dramatic chapter where she's dealing with it, and with the help of the Chozo. And they tried to adapt that into Other M, and it just did not work out. I really hate the way they characterized her in Other M. Holy shit, it's bad. But yeah, I think Dread did a really good job. When you just see her speaking Chozo, that's so freaking cool.
Yes.
So I'm eager to see where Prime 4 goes.
I thought Dread handled the lore pretty well. Metroid Prime 4, when in the Nintendo Direct trailer, they brought in the other bounty hunter with a mock droids and everything, and I was like,
that was cool.
Good.
Yeah, the mock droid.
Here come the other bounty hunters now.
He's kind of cool though. We don't know anything about him, so I'm eager to
I
see.
guess.
Well, you know,
Isn't he from
I can deal with it.
Hunters or something like that?
He's from
Fun
Hunters.
fact, if you go to Destructoid.com this morning, there is a blog that we have on the front page right now about who that character is and why he's been basically set up as like this weird Thanos for Metroid Prime 4. There is actually like a lineage there. It's very strange. It's very fun. So yeah.
I like that they're just like selecting some rando from Hunters to be the big bad now. You didn't play the game? Oh, too bad.
Learn the lore.
Remember Metroid Prime Hunters, right? The great multiplayer Metroid for the Nintendo DS.
I heard it was all right. I never
Here's
played
your
it.
I
companion
genuinely
character.
liked it.
It was all right, yeah. Though, like, my hand is permanently fixed into a claw from trying to play that thing on the Nintendo
I
DS.
hear that Federation Force was actually really good, and nobody played it because they're so mad at it.
Oh yeah. Well, that was a weird one too, right?
I'd like to see that re-release now that everyone's not angry at it. It's by Next Level Games. I love Next Level Games stuff.
Yeah. Eric, I just see a TK, so it's kind
My
of a
life is
surprise.
TK.
ATK.
So I'm gonna prelude this to what I'm actually going to talk about. So I mentioned before that I have the Ambernick SP coming in. Very excited about that. I've been kind of planning what I'm going to play because I also an Ambernick SP. Oh, we didn't talk about this. So Ambernick put out like Ambernick makes a bunch of like what are basically emulation machines, like handhelds, and obviously like the handheld emulation scene has been like thriving the last few years. I have a Steam Deck which can run pretty much anything, but like the Steam Deck is big, it's bulky. Sometimes you don't want to bust it out just to play like an old Game Boy game or whatever. Ambernick has recently released this thing that's basically their version of a handheld that they've had for a while, but it's in the SP format, so like a Game Boy Advance SP where it's a clamshell. It's roughly a little bit bigger than a Game Boy Advance SP, not by too much, but it is a little bit chunkier. And it can run basically everything up through like say your Dreamcast era stuff. I knew a few people who picked them up, got to mess around with them at a SGF and was like, this looks cool. And then I looked at the price tag on the website and it was like $59 plus shipping, and I was like, cool, buying it. So I have that on the way. I'm hopeful it's going to arrive soon because I'm going on a like week's vacation pretty soon in which I don't have any work obligations or anything, and I'm going to just play retro games on my new retro handheld for an entire week. And so I'm having a lot of fun like kind of planning ahead like what I want to play. I've got like a list. I'm like, oh, should I finally play like a Breath of Fire game? That'd be pretty fun. Golden Sun's always been on like my backlog. That'd be great. Just kind of going down this list and being like, there's so much fun stuff that I want to get around to. And it's all kind of spurred on by the fact that I'm doing these retro Sundays where originally we did Chrono Trigger and now I'm on Final Fantasy VI. And there's something about going back and playing these games in their original format. I know a lot of people love to talk about the remakes, the remasters and all that, but I've been really into the idea of playing these games as they were back then. Because we talk a lot about, okay, Final Fantasy VI. This is what we're actually talking about in my tavern segment. People talk a lot about the world of ruin and Kefka's crazy and all that kind of stuff.
It sure is.
I played tower defense in this shit. There's like a tower defense section where
There
you
is,
have like
and that's a
multiple
hard
parties.
section.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I did the part where Kefka's down at the bottom and Bannon's up at the top. Useless Bannon. Hate Bannon.
Good old Bannon.
He sucks. I dislike Bannon greatly because he just stands there. He's like, don't let anybody get to me. And I'm like, you're not going to fight? And he's
no.
like, I don't do anything. I just cast Cure. And like, and he can cast Cure, but he won't heal my party after they get knocked out. Yeah, like, thanks, Bannon. So anyways, I'm in this section, and you can watch the streams. I've been streaming them on this Twitch channel right here every Sunday. And just trying to figure out how to beat that section and realizing that I could get to Kefka and beat him early to not deal with like the waves of soldiers, but also being like, okay, well, I know that Edgar on his own can solo wipe parties with his bio blaster. So honestly, I'm going to leave him as like one party member by himself, and he's at the back. He's holding it down. He's the deep cover safety back there. He's going to make sure that nobody hits the end zone, right? And then I'm going to get like, okay, Gao's pretty good. Cyan kind of sucks. I'm kind of like,
welcome to the Clan Sucks Club.
Like, I like his story, but gameplay wise, I don't think he's doing much for me. Yeah,
He's all right.
Like he's got the Omni Punch thing or whatever that he's got now, but like
He's actually they had to
Locke does more
remake him
damage.
for. They've done a lot of revision on him in the Pixel remaster because he is like useless in the original.
Meanwhile, Gao
R.I.P.
just turns into a ghost and Bolt 2s everybody and is like a god. So shout outs to Gao. But I knew I needed Celeste down there because Kefka's going to cast some crazy shit like Ice 2. And so Celeste has got to put up the sword and catch it. This game is so fascinating in ways that I don't feel like we talk about often enough. I felt this way about Chrono Trigger too, where like the big stuff gets talked about very often. Obviously the story stuff, because it's RPGs and RPGs are big on story, and having those story moments are really impactful. But even just the little like design nuances of these games are so incredible and so interesting to see, and interesting to see in the format that they came in, that people were doing this on the Super Nintendo, stuff that feels like if I saw it in a modern RPG, I would be like, this is crazy, this is so good. And this was being done on the Super Nintendo back then. I love it. It's so great. It's so fun. It's like getting to experience an entire like section of history I never got to see, and then discovering like why it is the pillar that it is in our community. So let me tell y'all, ignorance is bliss. It's great to be blissfully ignorant, because then you get to learn new things and be happy all the time. I highly recommend it. Do not be proud of your ignorance, but do be willing to try new things and discover stuff, because I have learned so much about this era of RPGs just from the 2 games I've played so far, that I now just want to go diving into so much more. I have like some really obscure stuff that I'm going to play on this retro handheld that's coming in, because I just want to know, I want to understand this entire era of RPGs. So
now imagine like coming to that game when there was really nothing like it at all, especially in North America. Like, we were advancing from Final Fantasy IV, which is great. It's a great game.
I want to play 4 at some point too, yeah.
Oh, I want to watch you play. Like, I've been kind of watching the videos of you playing this. First of all, I love
secret...
The fact...
No, go for it, sorry.
I love the fact that you got to Rachel and you just paused for like 30 seconds because you had no idea what to say.
What is that optional? Can you just skip that? Can you miss that?
Like, miss that. Yeah.
Locke has a long lost lover that he might have like caused her accident and like her to lose her memory. Her dad like kicks him out, and then he like the town gets attacked or something, and then like I was like, that was really sad. Damn, like I guess Locke has a tragic backstory. Well, people in the chat told me I gotta talk to all the NPCs, and there's a house I haven't been to yet, so I should probably go in this house. And I go down into the basement, and she's there in suspended animation with a freaky necromancer. Like, what is this video game? What are we doing here?
It's so great. I don't know if you like. There is something you missed. I don't know if anyone like, it is a story thing that you missed, and I don't know if anyone told you. I don't know if you want to hear it.
Is it? So I know. I was looking up, because I'll be honest here. I hit a wall with that town that was full of like vagabonds and bandits and stuff like that.
Good old Zozo, yeah.
So I was kind of looking up what the level range was that I was supposed to be at for this, and I did while I was scrolling one of the guides for it. Saw mention that there was a story thing I could have gotten if I brought both Edgar and Sabin to Figaro. I'm not going to go back to try to get that. I might off stream go back and change up my party, because I think right now I have a 3-person party with Shadow. Shadow, I hate Shadow. I don't hate him as much as Bannon, but I do hate Shadow, because I give him my money and then he leaves at the worst time. Every time like a boss fight's about to come up, he's like, peace, done my job, later. Like,
he has a cool dog.
A glitch.
He has a cool dog that tanks hits for him. Switch it around, dude. Take hits for your dog. Like, what are you doing?
That's a good point.
It's true.
Yeah. There is a glitch called the empty party glitch, where you can have just Shadow in your party, and he takes off. He's like, I got my money, and he takes off, and he just leaves the game, and it crashes.
Incredible.
And when I saw that, like, I pissed myself laughing. I couldn't handle it. Just the music he's playing like an asshole. Just
I am
it goes
trying.
Dark. It's so good.
I am trying to stay pretty dark on stuff that is coming up. So I've kind of just been asking chat to be like, hey, if there is something crucial that you think I absolutely need to see, let me know. But like, if it's something optional, if it's something that you would maybe discover only if you had certain characters or whatever, let me roll with what I've got, because I do think the other thing that has really surprised me about Final Fantasy VI, especially compared to modern Final Fantasies, especially Final Fantasy 16, is the party dynamic aspect. It is an ensemble cast. It reminds me, this is going to sound weird, but let me finish my thought. It reminds me of Mass Effect 2. It reminds me of Mass Effect 2 because I feel like I'm constantly making choices about who I bring with me on my excursions and who I want to see interacting and talking to each other. And that's not something I've always associated with Final Fantasy. You know, I think of Final Fantasy definitely as like parties, and they have big parties. But in a lot of modern Final Fantasy X, your party is always kind of with you. And in 10, it's very much about like you're swapping the party out. Everybody's there. Everybody's fighting together. Here, I am having to make deliberate choices about who I want to hang out together and be in places together. And that's actually very, very interesting to me because it does add to that replayability, that like discovering later, like, oh, I never knew this scene could happen. I never knew that you could do this here and stuff like that. But it's also like adding a different layer to the party dynamic of like who is growing closer. There's no mechanic. There's no like bond level that's going up like Persona, but you are having this moment of like, in my journey, like Locke and Celeste are actually growing close together because they are constantly in my party together. And that's kind of interesting to see. So FF6, I don't know if y'all have heard this, but it's a pretty good video game. It's got some ideas. Y'all should try it sometime.
Eric, you are playing the RPG that made me an RPG fan.
Get a lot of people RPG fans.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. It's a game
getting
I'm already
me to want to
thinking.
replay it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I haven't touched it in like a decade and a half, probably. So
it's fun to go back to.
I'm like actively playing it, and in the place where like I've expressed before that it annoys me that I have to play on stream because it means that I can't play when I want to. Like I can't just go play it right now like I want to. I have to be like, I gotta wait for the stream. I gotta do this all on stream, which I do enjoy the streaming. I think it's fun. I enjoy playing in front of y'all and then having those moments with the community.
It's fun to watch you play it as someone who knows the game inside out and backwards.
But I'm also like actively playing it and already thinking like, oh, I could see myself replaying this game. I could see myself going back to this game. Like it's that kind of game. Same with Chrono Trigger, where I was like, I want to replay it right now. But like 2 years from now, I'll replay Chrono Trigger. That game was brilliant. Yeah.
It's been about, I think it's been 25 years since I first beat Final Fantasy VI. So it's maybe it's time for me to finally go back to it and see what I think after all these years. Back when I was just a child playing an RPG and I didn't understand how Celeste's mechanic worked. With
she catches the magic. She puts up her catchers, man. She
using it. I'd be
magic.
like, what is going on with this? What is this thing?
And then you cast Kira and she'd catch it and you're like, ah, crap, what is this?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I had a great moment where I had Gao imitating a ghost and I was healing the party and Gao kept dying and I was like, what's going on? It was because I was healing a ghost. He's imitating a ghost so well that he's taking damage from the heal. It's a good video game.
Also, I think that especially in the latter half of the game, there was so much optional content that I missed originally.
Yeah, it's very easy.
I would love to go back and re-experience that as well. So maybe one day. I have a very long backlog, much like you, Eric. So
much like the world.
This is why I bought the Ambernick. You just buy the Ambernick and you travel with it, and it's your little retro library.
I've got my Steam Deck. That's fine. Also an analog pocket.
Yeah, you got the pocket. You got the pocket.
I have an analog pocket with every single game from the NES. Basically every single 8-bit and 16-bit game ever made, plus a lot of arcade games. So it's really fun to go back to old GBA games and be like, oh, like it's fun to just scroll through and look at old GBA games and whatnot and see what I find. But, as for me, I've been very Atlas, Persona, SMT, that kind of thing.
Same. Yeah, I've been
playing a lot of Persona 3 Reload. As you know, I'm in my This Week in GeckoCon run. It's been a few weeks since I have streamed because since the last time I was properly on this podcast, sitting in this room, I went to SGF and IGN Live. I went to Scotland. I got COVID. I recovering from COVID as we speak. So a lot of water under the bridge. But it's now late June in my run in This Week in GeckoCon, and actually, I just unlocked a bunch of mechanics. So I unlocked are they pronounced Thurgies? Theurgy, Theurgies, which are basically special attacks, right? Or I would call them limit breaks. And the way that you build them up is interesting, where each character builds up differently depending on their personality. So like Junpei, if he does enough critical attacks, he will get confidence and his bar will go up. If Mitsuru uses status attacks, that will build it up. If Yukari uses healing, that will build it up. And of course, the main character has multiple of them that I think are unlocked, but depending on which personas you happen to have in your party. So I unlocked a really good Jack Frost and Jack-o'-lantern, Pyro Jack, is that what they're called?
Yeah.
I unlocked a really good combo just by having the two of them. And also, like, now I can cook with various party members or, like, do things around the dorm. I'm unlocking a lot of different social links, and it's, like, technically, like, only about 12 to 15 hours into the game to get into June. I've done my second full moon event. I got Fuka directing me around the Tartarus and everything. One thing that stands out to me about Persona 3 Reload is that it's a lot easier than Persona 3 Portable so far. Maybe because of the new mechanics, maybe they just toned down the difficulty, but I've been really cruising through this one so far. But it's great. It's a really, really well done remake. Mitchell, have you played a Persona game out of curiosity?
Yeah. I've played all the way to Kanji's dungeon in Persona 4, then stopped for whatever reason. And I've never beaten a Persona game. And then for Persona 5, I got all the way to, I think, it was like an alien ship or something.
Oh, the hamburger factory. I hate that place.
Yeah.
That.
And then I stopped there.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. But I've always enjoyed the heck out of them. They're too long for me. I burn out. I burn out, and then I want to play it again. And then when I go back to it, I'm like, I don't remember anything about how to play this game.
So I stop
again.
Week by week, and then you just kind of move very slowly through it. Though it does make me doubt that I'll ever finish Persona 5, because Persona 5 has these really, really long dialogue sections, and the dungeons just feel gigantic. I like the more bite-sized profile of Persona 3. It doesn't feel like every single section takes forever to get through, but even still, I'm playing about at least 2 to 3 hours a week, I think. So I might jump back in and stream again this week, I think, probably on Wednesdays. So please look forward to that. Blood God aficionados, go subscribe us at twitch.tv/bloodgodpod to watch me stream some more Persona 3 Reload, and also to Eric playing EsperQuest, and also to Axel the Blood God, which is on every Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Amazing. I'm also playing SMT5 Vengeance, and Nadia, you said you were also playing that one?
Yep, I played it on the Switch, but I just kind of wanted to... I didn't finish it number one. I wanted to kind of go through it with better performance, which was absolutely worth it. It's a great game. I'm still pretty early into it, but I just remember... it basically matches my memory being good, like just dashing around, fighting monsters, recruiting them, fusing them, all the good stuff. Of course, it's SMT, it's not Persona, so it's a little bit more hardcore, but it's still very friendly. Like, it's probably one of the friendlier SMT games if you want to get into the series. It's a good one to get into.
About this game is dissonant. The soundtrack, the world,
I love the soundtrack,
the character designs. It is very SMT. And one of the things that I like about it is that the demons really take a lot more of a center stage in this one.
Yeah.
Whether they're in your party, whether you see them on the open world, they have actual personalities. And this was the thing in SMT3 as well. It is interesting to, as you said, Nadia, dash around the world.
Yeah. I do like how the demons are all just like schlubs. Some of them are like the weak guys, are like, "Hey, don't pick on me," and or they say, "Oh, it's a strong demon bullying me. Can you go beat it up for me?" And they're just like hanging around in what's basically ruined Tokyo, and they're just like, "Yeah, we don't know why we're here. We're just living." I do
Yeah.
like demons in that game. It's like they're like us. We're just here. What are you gonna do about it?
It's quite variable in terms of the visual appeal. The actual presentation can feel pretty workmanlike at the time, but also some of especially the demons themselves, can look really great.
They look so cool.
When you're fighting a boss, for example, one of the first bosses, and we were talking about the divine lion. There's sort of a divine lion-like character in SMT5 as well. And he looks really cool when you're battling him, actually. So, and of course, the press turn system is in this one.
I love the press turn system so much.
It's really good.
So good.
Yeah. So it works really well. Interestingly, if you fire up SMT5 Vengeance, right at the very beginning of the game, you basically encounter this girl who's suspended in light, and you can either free her or you can let her stay. And if you free her, that opens up the vengeance route. And so that's the one that I ended up doing. And the voices were like, "You're going to destroy the world." I'm like, well, that sounds good. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
So that time has got an old spit shine anyway. I thought, like, basically, like, I didn't wake her up because I thought I'd just go through the game normally because I didn't finish it. So I wonder if I should have picked Vengeance instead, but I picked... What does Vengeance do exactly? Is it a different story?
It's the new route that was added for SMT5 Vengeance. Like, specifically, that is, like, the new route that you do, or can do.
So it's okay to finish the game normally and then go back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I mean, to do it, you would have to start a new game and do it from there. But, like, if you did not choose that, then you're playing basically what base SMT5 was.
Right.
Playing this game on Switch was kind of a lot for me. Like, the performance was really bad in the base game. So, playing it on Steam Deck, where it's at 60 FPS, and I'm just running through a decent-looking world. Like I said, the visuals can be really variable at times. At times, it looks like a very early PS3 game, and at times, it looks really, really, really nice. But being able to run through it at 60 FPS definitely adds a lot to it, I think. So, yeah. So, am I going to wholeheartedly recommend SMT5 Vengeance? I don't know. It's definitely a taste. It's a flavor. It's a flavor profile of RPG.
I like it. I
really
say if you're... the first SMT game I got into was Strange Journey Redux, which I'd love to see a part of that. That was a great one to start with. But this is a decent one to start with, especially if you're a Persona fan. I think the Demon Garden, or whatever they call it now, I think that's new. Or was that in the original? I don't know, but it's a little rest area where you can talk to your demons, and they say... Like, I talked to the slime, and he's like, I don't want this stupid shit. You can have it. And he gave me, like, a healing item. So, stuff like that's a lot of fun.
My first and only exposure to SMT was Nocturne, and it kicked my ass.
Buenos dias, fuckboy. Matador.
And it kicked my ass so hard that I got scared of going back to it.
That's understandable. It's a hard game. Yeah. I honestly didn't like it nearly as much as I like 5 or even Strange Journey.
That's interesting. I like SMT3 better than 5.
If
you, by the way, SMT3 is one of our Pantheon picks, and I think you can go buy it a la carte over on our Patreon page. So go and check that out. Good stuff. All right, that's it for the tavern. Nadia, take us home.
Are any of you Bluey fans? I know a lot of adults. Oh, okay. Hi.
Mitchell has kids, so I'm not surprised.
Oh, that'll do it.
I'm much more of a Bluey fan than he is right now. He doesn't
happening a lot.
He doesn't understand it yet, but he'll get there.
I bring it up because I don't really watch it regularly, but there is a very famous episode I think it's called Vacation. It's about Bluey going on vacation with her family, and she meets this French-Canadian dog named Jean-Pierre. He's a Labrador that's very cute. And it kind of reminded me of this time of year. We'd go up to the Wasaga Beach area, Georgian Bay, and we had we stayed at this collection of cabins that had like several families, and this guy from Quebec was there. And I played with his daughters. They didn't really speak English, but they all spoke French. It was very much like Bluey and me kind of playing with them. Like, we managed, even though that barrier was there. And it was it's funny because I can remember them visually very clearly. I can't remember their names, God help me, but I do remember their dad, who had better English than his daughters. And we all went to the beach together. It was my family, his family, and we had the Chaos family, who sometimes like ended up at the cabins at the same time as us. They were the ones who ran over their own briefcase. I think I talked about them.
Wait, are you not the Chaos family?
We are a Chaos family. There was another Chaos family who sometimes ended up.
Chaos family and
yeah, and this nice Quebecois guy. He was not a Chaos element. He was cool, but we're all at the beach. We're all wearing our bathing suits. He's from Quebec, so he wore a Speedo, a very revealing Speedo. And Quebec is very European. I mean, parts of Canada are very European, like Toronto. I live in a very European area. That's where I grew up. But Quebec as a whole is kind of a more European place. So they're into Speedos, I suppose. And here's the thing. Like, my mother has the mental capacity of a 10-year-old when it comes to her sense of humor. So this guy's like, I don't say his dick was hanging out, but it was just like, it was very obvious. And my mother, again, has like the maturity of a 5-year-old, so she's giggling. And the other Chaos mother is giggling too. And my father's trying to tell them to shut up because they're making asses of themselves. And I don't remember this poor guy's name. Remember his Speedo? It was very bright yellow, and he was wearing goggles. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, I understand this Bluey story on a very personal level because they do reunite, which is very cute, like when they're adults. But then it's like, okay, well, I have the same story, but there's a Speedo in the middle of it, so it's not nearly as wholesome. And what if I wrote a Bluey episode? That'd be really good. Eric just has his head in his hand. I'm done.
I missed how this was connected to Bluey. I think somewhere in the midst of their, like, when you said dick hanging out, I was like, how is this part of Bluey again?
Because I understand the episode where Bluey is spent summer with Quebecois friends who speak French, and she's speaking, well, it's Australian English, but she's speaking Australian English, and they're still friends, and I was friends with them, but since it's me.
But how did the dick get involved?
Because he was wearing a Speedo, and it was just like, I'm not saying it was hanging out, but it was very obvious. Like, if you wear a Speedo, it's
Nadia telling
obvious.
A wholesome story about, like, cultural interactions, and by the way, one of them was in a Speedo.
A really yellow Speedo.
It's an important color to the story.
This was the same beach where I met the guy with the arm who got ripped off by wolves. So this was not just a Chaos
this is a lore-heavy
family.
beach. This is a lore-heavy beach.
It's a very lore-heavy beach. It is my lore beach. I'll tell you more stories sometime.
The beach where you gain lore.
Plus 10 lore. The Chaos state.
And that's it for this week's episode of Axe of the Blood God. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. And if you enjoy the show, please subscribe to us over on Twitch at twitch.tv/bloodgodpod. We stream this episode every single week on Saturdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, and we have a pre-show and a post-show with our Stars of Destiny. And this week we are joined by Anthrax Bees, Drew RWX, Flashback 2012, Harvest Lunatic, JB, Laguna Matata 124, Shareable Texas, and Spyrus. Thank you so much for your generous support. We're on Patreon at patreon.com/bloodgodpod, where for just $1 a month you can get the show ad-free and you can join our Discord. Enjoy all of the Blood God fans. We're going to be doing our Pantheon poll this week. Please stay tuned. It'll be a fun one, I think. We are just 1 month away also from our charity stream, our annual charity stream where we raise money for Trans Lifeline. We've got so many cool ideas for this month, for this year's charity stream. We're going to try and get higher than we ever have. We're going to try and get to $20,000 and force me to play Final Fantasy XIV. For real this time. We'll see how it goes. And I've been your host, Kat Bailey. Thank you so much for joining us. And for Eric, Nadia, Mitchell, and myself, thanks for listening and happy adventuring.